really weird. Uh, wow, this is just all of this for a visual. Oh, oh, now it's all gone. Can't get back. What is this? Oh my goodness. Hey guys, welcome back to Dev Diaries number 5. This one will show the two new maps that I teased in Dev Diaries numbers 3 and 4. To start, I'm going to show you guys the ones I showed you in number 3, which is the arena inspired map. You can see right now I was going for a moon aesthetic. I'm not sure you guys got the moon vibe from the first time you guys saw it. You guys didn't, then don't worry, because I eventually reworked it out of a moon aesthetic because I decided that it wouldn't make sense in a mythological sense for how they got to the moon. Like, I'm sure, regardless of how much you worship Tsukuyomi, he's not giving you a free ride up there. Also, it may look like a moon now because you can see the whole thing, but I showed a normal view to the people because normally when you play the game, most of the map is covered in fog, so it's up to you to scout the whole area. So I showed a relatively slightly scouted version of the map to a bunch of people, and honestly, only like one or two of them said it reminded them of the moon. So at that point, I was like, yeah, maybe I should move away from a moon aesthetic to a more obvious one that fits the theme of Age of Mythology more. You're not able to tell it right away that maybe it shouldn't be the theme. It's a shame though, because you can see I went out of my way to program only white animals on this map to match the moon aesthetic. So I even made a special code that made all the chickens white. But it doesn't matter. I eventually changed this to a more of a tundra aesthetic because currently my only tundra type map is Sunlight Strands. And Sunlight Strands uses the tundra assets, but it's meant to be lively and grassy. So I decided to remake this one to use tundra aesthetics, but in a more dirt and pretty boring aesthetic. Depending on what we get with the Aztecs DLC, I could definitely see myself repainting this in the future, but for now I'm going to have this Tundra stuff as a placeholder, which I will show you guys on screen shortly here. So yeah, if you look on screen now, I should have the new version playing. You can see I definitely changed the amount of tree types that are in the map. Previously in the moon version, there's only the one white tree type that I could get on my hands on, but now I've changed it to have 3 forest types in the map. I wanted to just have a lot of forests, add a little bit of life because the map is otherwise dull. So to start, you have these maple trees that surround you, and then after that, you have a bunch of brown pine and oak autumn trees that surround the lively area. And within the lively area itself, you have golden ginkgo trees and some dead trees to accompany it. Originally there was only golden ginkgo trees in the middle, but I added some dead trees just to break it up because it was way too golden. And then in terms of aesthetics for the animals, I've added a bunch of savanna type animals despite being a tundra map. I just felt like throwing them on here because I don't use them that often. But with aesthetics out the way, they are subject to change. So I'm gonna get to the part that probably won't change, which is the core gameplay. As you can see, you are surrounded by a bunch of cliffs here. This cliff type I will not change, but it is the unused Chinese cliff type. You can only see it maybe in the Chinese campaign, and that's about it. So I haven't had the opportunity to use this in any map yet, and I finally got the opportunity, and I decided to throw it here. I think it looks awesome because on the mini map it appears as black instead of the other yellow that the cliffs appear as. I thought that looks really clean. And then you can see you have a little divot. Anyway, these divots that you spawn in are created using the failed Mount Awat code. So as you saw in episode 3, I failed to make Mount Awat spawn pawns the way I want, but fortunately, I was able to reuse that code to make this, where there's a smaller circle to protect your starting resources, and a bigger circle, and that bigger circle is where the maple trees spawn. And then these circles are attached to a bigger circle that spawns in the center, and that opening is how you get into the arena and fight everyone. I say this map is inspired by Arena because you kind of have the little cubby protected space that you spawn in. Even though there's not walls around it, it's still like your protected space. I guess you could say the mountain is your wall. And then I gave you your second town center like right then and there because it also happens in Arena where you have your second town center right there around your walls. So yeah, your town center is very much closer now. It slowly spawns with you. And then your third town center, you got to go to the center and fight for it. Yep, that's right. I made all town centers like the second one. You have to move forward to the center of the map and fight for it, as you can see. And there's two areas in the center circle. There's the The low area, which is like very heavily wooded, you can see that I added the fog effect to give the little spooky aesthetic. It has the brown pine and oak autumn trees. That's the low area where there's not gonna be too many resources. A few are programmed to spawn there, but not all of them. Well, it looks spooky. Hopefully, it actually serves as an advantage in terms of defense. You know, make it easy to wall off, and you can protect your base there. But then, in contrast, you have this super open center where you're gonna have to fight everyone. There's not much cover to hide around, but that's also where you have to go to get the resources. So you can't just bunker down your little starting area. So hopefully, this finds a balance of bunkering down and forcing people to go out. I know this map is very uncompetitive as it looks already, so don't worry about that part. You know, hopefully it's just a fun little change in gameplay every now and then. Because I don't want to create all two similar maps that are just the same meta, you know? Just have options for those who want to spice it up here and there. One thing about the center is that berries are actually programmed to only spawn in the center in 1v1s. This doesn't happen in non-1v1 games, so you're gonna play with friends, don't worry about that, but hopefully that adds a little bit of a competitive edge to 1v1. Not that I'm working too hard to make this a competitive map or anything by the looks of it. You may also notice that teams spawn closer to each other on this map. So you can see like red teams close together, purple teams close together on the mini map there. I actually made that random. It doesn't always do that. Sometimes it will make you closer to your teammates, and sometimes it'll just spawn all players equally close. So be on the lookout for that. Add a little bit of variation here. Now you can see that green team's doing a good job of walling off. They got the right idea right here. So yeah, you can easily wall off your starting area. It makes it very defensive. So a very simple premise, but I think it's going to be really fun. This was heavily inspired by this variation of Land Unknown I got. It was definitely very buggy, but it was such a fun and unique experience that I hope this can maybe replicate some of that. I do have some very little footage of it here, but I don't keep too much spare footage on me because of how heavy video files are, and I only have like. But yeah, the center does spawn a town center per player, but it's not like usual where there's kind of a designated town center per player. It just kind of throws one per player in there. So like if there's 8 players, it just throws 8 in the center, you know. So you kind of have to be quick with it, establish yourself in the center. And since the center has no thing that spawns specifically in the center, King of the Hill works just fine in this map, you know. If you activate King of the Hill, all the other things should spawn around it like normal. And then I'm gonna show you guys what I mean by it. You spawn in your first town center, in case you guys didn't see it earlier. You can see that each person has 2 town centers in the starting area. Let me zoom in on this specific area and show you guys. Yep, makes expanding to the second TC really easy since that second TC is part of your base. Like I said, this is inspired by how the second TC in Arena spawns. Holy Fimbulwinter, that's like the second one in 30 seconds. But yeah, I tested in Sudden Death too, and that game mode's compatible, so this one seems pretty ready to ship the open beta to you guys. Before I move on to the next one that you saw in Dev Diaries number 4, I'm going to go over some challenges in developing this map. Although I'm going to cut out most of the challenges not to bore you guys since most of them are repeating from other maps. I'll do the unique challenges for developing this map. So, let's talk about the clip you saw in the beginning. I'm going to try and talk over my live commentary because I'm not going to lie, it sounds so uh weird. I'm not even used to recording myself in advance. So live commentary still seems to be out the realm of things I want to dip my toes in. I only recently started using commentary, you know, in case you saw my older videos, I was avoiding it at all costs, subtitling it, but subtitling each video just took so long, so I decided to finally fold and do a commentary since I was going to have to do that sooner or later. But yeah, still not used to it, so give me a moment, and I apologize for my very weird live commentary that I'm trying so hard to talk over. I could just edit it out completely, but I already recorded this segment, so enjoy. So that's the full clip of the bug. The context is I'm developing a height variation for this map, and for some reason, when I try to force height variation, it does crazy things like that, where it makes the game just completely break and eat itself alive. Um, yeah, I tried many times, and it just makes that black hole on one side of the map only for some reason, even though it's programmed for both. And then there's just your game gets stuck like that. I had to just exit my game. Okay, to begin, height variation is a completely visual thing and should not have any effect on gameplay, so I have no idea how it caused this. But I'm going to explain what height variation is. So zooming on the map here, you can see that the cliffs, which is the black part, has height variation because you see it's not a solid black color. There's like dips and makes the terrain look like. But the yellow part that you're fighting on is completely flat. It's a solid color, it's flat, and it has no terrain variation. And it just looks like weird. The only map that I regularly have that doesn't have terrain variation is Catalans because I like to keep it simple. But all my other maps and most of the vanilla maps have terrain variation just to prevent this, to make it look more natural. Um, I just really wanted it on this map, and for some reason, this map wasn't taking it. I tried so many different kinds of commands. I worked like 2 whole days and nights on this feature alone. Like that, I worked more on trying to get that feature in this map than actually making this map in its entirety and all its quirks and bugs I had to fix. It was insane, and I still haven't figured out how to do it. And then I was thinking to myself, what vanilla map has cliffs and needs elevation like I do? Because I was thinking, I was observing that the lack of height elevation on the bottom part was most likely due to the difference of height from the cliffs that you see on the side to the bottom. Like when you have such a height difference, it's kind of hard to focus on those details, I guess. So I was thinking, what vanilla map also has a similar situation where there's a big cliff surrounding the map and you have a little land to fight on? I remembered Jotunheim has that. There's like a giant cliff around the map, and then there's a little gap, and you fight in that gap. So I was thinking, okay, can I go to Jotunheim and figure out, there's a way I could fix this, using the official code, or, making a similar mock-up to it. So I go to Jotunheim, and lo and behold, it suffers from the exact same issue that this map suffers from. So I'm like, okay, so I've been fighting 2 days and nights to try and solve this issue that the official game developers themselves have not fixed or don't know how to work around. And I'm not trashing on the game developers anyway, by the way. They put a lot of hard work in this game. I'm just saying, like, if I knew that they were struggling with this too, I would have just let them solve it instead of working so hard, trying to figure this out. Yeah, it's not an important thing. It's just a small visual thing, but as a map maker, I like to add these finer details, make sure it's all good and dandy. Even though most people don't notice it, I want to add that detail and just refine my map that much. But if the official game developers haven't figured it out or they're not planning on fixing it, I'm just gonna let it slide. It's not that serious. Anyway, guys, before I get too heated over that, I'm just gonna quickly move on to the next map real quick before I go back and talk about the other one anymore. This is another map I made during the developments of Dev Diaries number 3 and 4. I teased this one specifically at the end of number 4, I believe. But this has gone over a lot of visual overhaul since the version you saw in number 4. It's still heavy work in progress, but I decided to go for a Savannah theme because I realized none of my maps are actually Savannah themed. Um, I didn't pull it off as well as I liked, and once again, as Aztec DLC comes out, I might have more assets to play with, and I might go for a different theme on this map. But until then, this is gonna be a Savannah themed map. Um, this had quite a few problems working with it, but now it works well. With the caveat that it looks like the Roblox icon. I didn't even notice that until someone pointed out to me, but go off. All right, so first off, and 1v1s, yeah, we have one town center that spawns on the grass layer and one town center that spawns on the desert layer. Oh wait, actually, I should explain the layers first. Sorry, I'm a little disgruntled after thinking about how hard I worked on the high elevation stuff. So sorry, let me get my pieces together. Um, on this map, you can clearly see in the mini map you have 3 layers, right? There's the desert layer on the outside. That's gonna house all the inanimate objects. So like gold and rugs are only gonna spawn on the desert layer. So if you're playing Egyptian, for example, you might want to make that your first priority to go up to the desert layer and start walling things off. On the green area is the area you spawn, but it's also the area that houses all the food. So hunt and berries and herdables, they only spawn on the green area. They will not spawn on the desert layer or the dark green layer. And in the dark green layer is all the forest. All the trees on the map are spawned there, which makes you and your enemy susceptible to raids, and you got to secure and build walls around that area if you want to get continuous wood for your match. So it's definitely a goofy concept. Like each layer has its resource that you need of food, wood, and gold. Originally I was gonna name this map Dress Leches, but I went out and ate some Dress Leches, and I realized the three Dress Leches wasn't about layers; it was about the types of milks used. So never mind that part. I got a new name for it that you guys will find out sooner or later. There are a lot of challenges. First, making the cliff ramps fit like all the player sizes. Eventually, I just hard coded three variations, like how I did for January Fields in the last video, where there's like three different formulas depending on how many players there are. There's three different formulas for this map depending on how many players there are. Another thing was I had to change the ramp color of the forest layer three times. I just wanted that contrast between the dark green and the yellow cliff just to make it easier to see where the ramps is. And then finally I had to program the trees and the forest layer to not spawn at the edge. I had to push it back a little bit. And then on the three layers, there are a lot of problems with them. All the decorations I put on them, which by the way, they do vary a little bit. So for example, one round you'll notice that the gold has nothing underneath it, and another round the gold might have rock sand underneath it. And then one round you might not see any shrines to set, but another round you might see a shrine to set sitting around. So yeah, there's a little bit of variation there, and then there's gonna be solid rocks that prevent you from building everywhere in the desert layer, so be careful of that. Like they're gonna be really big rocks that straight up prevent you from building. You spawn with a little bit of starting trees here. They're gonna be palm trees, and sometimes savanna old trees are gonna be mixed in there, and a little bit of starting gold just to help you out in the beginning in case your opponent immediately rushes you. And then programming all the little details, like all the bushes and plants, was painful because of the three layers. You had to not only make it force in your layer, but just in case like another layer was the smaller part of it, you have to exclude that layer. So for example, all the stuff in the food region had to be told to stay out the grass region because technically the food region is big and it includes the grass region or the forest region within it, if that makes sense. Sorry, I said grass like two times there when I meant forest. But yeah, the food slash grass layer includes the forest layer. You have to tell it to stay away from the forest layer. But alas, I couldn't have just a simple boring map, so of course I took the effort to program these little details in, even though no one will probably notice them. Which brings me into my next segment with the forest covering the middle of the map. How are you gonna play Cough? Well, good thing, good news. I programmed a special version of the map that loads when you pick the King of the Hill option. So it spawns a nice little pond here that with the Cough in the center so you can be able to claim it. Although most of the forest is still there, so on bigger map sizes, I'm gonna have to warn you, bring some sort of way to get through the forest, whether it be teleportation of Hades, um, a rock through Raw, or like a forest fire through Odin. Just find a way to get to the center. That, or you might be better off just speed blitzing your enemy. So rejoice, all two King of the Hill players. I've thought of you guys. But yeah, development wise, this one is actually pretty straightforward. Ever since I learned how to make a square in this game, um, I tried to program it similar to I programmed the arena map from the first half of the video, where I had a land and then I wanted to place a mountain around it to cover it. But then that ended up failing for both. So I did the opposite for both, where I placed the cliff and I poked holes in it. So both the arena and this map were programmed to be you start with a giant layer and then you start poking holes in it, and that's how you get the part that you fight on. So like in the arena map, the part where you fight in the center, that's actually a hole poked out of the cliff. Without me poking out these holes, the whole map would just be cliff. And then on this map, the three layers, the desert layer is actually the beginning of the map, and I poked a hole out, and that makes the food layer, and then I poked another hole out, and that makes the forest layer. Yep. So basically, I just worked the opposite of how I started, but after that, it was pretty straightforward. Both of these, surprisingly, only took a little bit more work than Into the Spire. Oh yeah, and unlike Into the Spire, I do plan on giving these two maps a rare variant. So given I haven't decided what the normal variants are going to look like yet, you have to give me a moment before I create the rare variant. But yeah, they will have rare variants. Their odds are going to be just what I'm feeling at the moment, just like the other ones. So don't take it too seriously. Of course, with them reaching the beta stage, it's all subject to change accordingly. But you guys can expect to see this soon, before January 23rd, I believe, because that's when the Dynasty Warriors DLC comes out. I kind of want to play that when it comes out, so I'm gonna try ahead and finish this work now, and then I'll publish it so that once you go in the game, you get a little red dot in your mods menu and be like, update your game, and then you update it, and you'll see these maps will be available with the parentheses beta next to it, and then you guys can try it out and give me feedback in the forums, or depending on how you guys want to get a hold of me, or in the comments, and we'll see about that. There's probably going to be 2 more Death Diaries before that. Another one where I just fix up things, and then another one where I just try and figure out something new. And then after that, Dev Diaries might slow down, but I will release a speculation video for Demeter, however you pronounce it, and maybe even the Aztec thing, and just more Age of Mythology content before the Dynasty Warriors DLC comes out. And if you're not interested in watching Dynasty Warriors DLC, don't worry, I'll just post a few and I'll move back onto the Age of Mythology content. Age of Mythology is my bread and butter here. I have like 2,000 hours on it. I love it so much. Although, I'll be honest, like most of my 2,000 hours is just developing maps. I hardly play the game itself or even online anymore for that matter. But yeah, please don't fret about Dynasty Warriors content. This YouTube channel is a passion project, but I assure you, I will go back to Age of Mythology shortly after I get my little jitteries out. Can't blame me for enjoying other games every now and then. But yeah, I really lightning rounded this video since it was 2 maps put into 1 video. Otherwise, this video would have been 40 minutes long. Each map would have its own 20-minute segment about the nuances and challenges I had to go through. But I just got back and I'm really tired, and I'm just gonna take a break, and work on the fine details. But feel free to comment any questions. I'll try my best to answer it. And I hope the volume on this video was louder. I found out if I just scream into my mic, which is what I'm actually doing right now, it picks up better. But hopefully my neighbors don't think I'm crazy for doing this. But tell me if this is better than last video, where I'm like kind of quiet. I do volume boost all my videos before I post it in an effort to help you, but I think that causes some audio scratching sometimes where it kind of just blows in your ear, and I'm sorry if that hurts. So I'm gonna try and yell first before I do that to get more of an authentic volume increase. But yeah, that's all I got for today. Thank you for watching as usual, and see you guys. Feel free to leave any comments below, and I hope I was way more energetic this video than I was the last one. Still pretty tired since I just got back, but it is what it is. Alright, and don't forget, I'm gonna awkwardly insert the 20-second segment of outro here. Yeah, don't mind it. Just, you wanna click on it? You can. You don't want to? That's fine. No one's pressuring you. Have a good day.